Starting off this countdown, number 10, pursue your passion. Rich people get rich when they do something they are passionate about. And if you don't love what you do, you won't put in the time and effort needed to become successful. Jim Koch traded in a stable job at the Boston Consulting Group in 1984 to start Boston Beer Co., the business that created Samuel Adams Boston Lager. Koch was driven by his personal love of beer to start the now multi-million-dollar business. The most common thing I remind people of is to only pursue something you love, because a small business is going to be very demanding of your time, your energy, it just eats your life, Koch told Business Insider. And if you're doing something you love, then you will accept and even enjoy that. If you're just doing it to get rich, you're going to lose heart. Number 9, use other people's money. To the average person, the old saying that it takes money to make money might sound like a tired cliche used to justify irrational spending. For the wealthy, however, it's a golden rule. The key is leveraging other people's money to increase your own wealth. Trading time for dollars is a loser's game, especially as technology destroys many jobs that don't require a highly skilled human being, someone has said. Using money from banks or investors and hiring people to work for you is time-tested formula for building wealth. Not to mention the tax laws, which heavily favor businesses. Whether you're fundraising to start a business or flipping real estate for a profit, relying on other people's money to do the heavy lifting greatly increases the return. Of course, it's also riskier than relying on your own funds, but as legendary investor Warren Buffett once put it, risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. Number 8, don't waste money to impress others. Most rich people don't spend their time and money trying to impress others, someone said. They are not in a race. They know they have made it, so their attention is not what others think. In fact, many wealthy individuals wouldn't have become rich if they had spent their hard-earned money buying things to keep up with others. Authors Thomas Stanley and William Danko said much the same thing in their 1996 bestseller, The Millionaire Next Door: The Surprising Secret of America's Wealthy, writing that a couple of key secrets of the country's richest people are living below their means and rejecting big spending lifestyles. Spending money to appear rich before you actually are rich is a surefire way to sabotage your wealth-building goals, so focus on what matters, accumulating wealth in the coming years. Number 7, donate to charitable causes. Wealthy individuals know that donating to charity doesn't only help the world at large, it also helps their finances. If you analyze your tax return rather than take the standard deduction, you can deduct charitable contributions to qualified organizations. The more you deduct, the more you reduce your taxable income. Charitable giving is an excellent tool to mitigate tax consequences, someone said. The wealthy know this, and you don't have to be wealthy to do it. Whether you write a check to your favorite charity or donate clothes you no longer wear to Goodwill, hang on to your receipts and claim your charitable deduction. Or be more strategic with your giving by setting up a donor-advised fund, they continue. These simple low-cost funds are available through investment firms and let you get a tax deduction at the time you set aside money in the account. You can then make grants by following your own time schedule. Number 6, save first, spend later. In Warren Buffett's words, if you buy things you don't need, you will soon sell things you need. This is exactly why most of the rich people save first and spend later. So stop cribbing about your inability to save and get rid of excuses like insufficient income, high expenses, or the no compromise policy on fulfillment of the YOLO, you only live once motto. The key to saving lives is the habit of saving first and spending later. Every month, set aside a part of your income as your savings. It can be 20%, 30%, or 50%, any percentage to begin with. Just ensure to be disciplined and stay true to the habit. And remember that whenever your income rises, increase the proportion of savings, instead of spiking up your spends upon obtaining more money. Number 5, know what you're paying in investment fees. The rich also pay attention to investment fees, something many others overlook. For example, more than half of workers don't know they're paying fees on their workplace retirement savings account, according to a study by the National Association of Retirement Plan Participants. Yet those fees can eat away at your returns. The more you're paying in mutual fund fees or transaction fees means less money in your pocket, someone said. Even small fees can have a big impact. If you invest $100,000 over 20 years and pay a 1% annual fee, your portfolio value will be around $30,000 less than if you had paid a 0.25% annual fee, according to the Securities and Exchange Commission's Office of Investor Education and Advocacy. Check your account statement to see what fees you're paying. If they seem high, the SEC recommends asking whether the cost can be reduced. You also should shop around for accounts and investment firms with low fees, which can help you keep more of the money you worked hard to save. Number 4, pen down your thoughts every day. Before this digital world bombarded everyone's lives, remember the age-old tradition way of journaling each and every day by writing it down with pen and paper? That is in fact amongst the most common habits which many rich and successful people follow. When you write and not type every day, you reflect upon your thoughts, slow down and train the mind to think coherently. This way, penning down your thoughts and experiences each day enables you to reflect on how your day went, what you could have done differently, and what learning got you from little or big experiences that day. It's completely fine if you wish to type an online blog or journal instead of penning it down. Either way, it's all about allowing yourself to reflect upon your thoughts and actions peacefully. Number 3, choose the right retirement savings account. You can earn tax benefits by contributing to a 401k or similar plan because contributions come out of your paycheck before taxes, lowering your taxable income, and the money grows tax deferred. When you withdraw that money in retirement, however, it will be taxed at your regular income tax rate, which is currently as high as 37% for the wealthiest taxpayers. You don't get any tax breaks by investing in stocks, bonds, or mutual funds through a brokerage account. But if you hold these investments for more than a year, they'll be taxed at a long-term capital gains rate, which ranges from 0% to 20%, but tops out at 15% for most taxpayers. The types of investments you have in your accounts can have a dramatic effect on your long-term returns, someone said. Typically, it's best to keep securities such as bonds, mutual funds, and divided paying stocks in tax-deferred retirement savings accounts. Then keep your individual stocks in brokerage accounts. Number 2, they invest. Once building up an emergency fund, people say their clients have organized investment plans, whether it's in stocks, bonds, or exchange-traded funds, ETFs. It suggested setting up a monthly or bi-monthly automatic transfer of cash from your checking account into an investment account. This way you can forget about having to remember to manually invest, and you can then learn to live on the funds you have available. Most of my clients do not miss having that money in their cash flow, and then they can use those invested savings for future car purchases, vacations, or other short or long-term goals, without incurring additional debt, someone said. As a general rule of thumb, you should save at least roughly 20% of your income each month. And what the person said before agrees. This 20% goes towards your saving plans, emergency fund, retirement, and investments. How much you take out of your paycheck to invest depends heavily on your income and investment goals, but getting used to living without that 20% is a good start for both your savings and your investments. Now, coming in at number 1, you can buy an apartment building even if you're not rich. The years since the pandemic started have been a roller coaster. Historically though, real estate investing offers the best long-term returns. Some people have said that they like investing with the company Diversity Fund. They supposedly help you make long-term investments in apartments and office buildings all over the country, and you don't have to be a millionaire. And you can also get started with only $500. You can see exactly which properties are included in your portfolios, like a 200-unit apartment complex in Texas or a 59-unit building in San Diego. And you don't have to be the landlord. Because they know how to ride at the market's ups and downs, they historically have seen annual returns of 17% to 18%, though they can't make any promises. As a partial owner, you can make money on rent payments and when property values go up. Number 10, Truett Cathy under fire by LGBTQ+ activists in 2012. While Chick-fil-A is perhaps best known for its crispy chicken sandwiches, the company is also known for its controversies surrounding LGBTQ+ rights. Chick-fil-A and its president Dan Cathy, whose current net worth is $5.2 billion, were scandalized after the company revealed its support for Christian organizations such as Fellowship of Christian Athletes, the Salvation Army, and the Paul Anderson Youth Home, which have all held anti-gay beliefs over the years. In 2012, Cathy gave an interview to the Baptist Press in which he said he believed in the quote, biblical definition of the family unit, that is, that marriage should only be between a man and a woman. Backlash ensued, and while Cathy claimed it was his own personal religious belief and that the company did not have any anti-gay agenda, activists went as far as to boycott the chain entirely. The chain has since stopped donating to these organizations, choosing instead to donate to education, homelessness, and hunger. Number 9, Jack Ma's Ant Group IPO shelved in a power grab. China's financial regulators hit pause in November 2020 on fintech company Ant Group's $35 billion IPO on the Hong Kong and Shanghai stock exchanges, just days before the company was slated to go public in the world's largest public offering. Jack, co-founder and chairman of Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba, is the largest individual shareholder in Ant Group, an arm of Alibaba that enables online payments and makes consumer loans. The Shanghai Stock Exchange cited significant change to the regulatory environment as the reason for halting the IPO, but offered few additional details, according to Bloomberg. About a week prior to the announcement during a conference in Shanghai, Jack blamed China's financial regulations for stifling innovation. The Wall Street Journal reported that Chinese President Xi Jinping personally killed the IPO in retaliation for Jack's criticism. In late December, Chinese regulators announced an antitrust investigation into Alibaba and recommended Ant Group's self-implement financial regulations amid a larger desire in Beijing to limit technology firms' growth and power. Number 8, Robert F. Smith's massive tax evasion. Smith, a private equity CEO and the wealthiest black man in America who notably paid off student loans for the entire graduating class of Morehouse College in 2019, lost the respect of many when he confessed in October 2020 to an illegal scheme to conceal income and avoid taxes, and paid a hefty fine to settle the matter. That month, federal officials disclosed that Smith admitted to parking $200 million in offshore accounts and criminally evaded paying taxes on it for 15 years from 2000 2000 through 2015. Smith entered into a non-prosecution agreement with the Department of Justice and agreed to pay $139 million in penalties to the IRS, which is the largest tax fine ever. He also agreed to help the IRS reel in Texas-based billionaire Robert Brockman, Smith's former client at Goldman Sachs, and reportedly the initial investor in its Vista Equity private equity firm. Brockman was charged in October 2020 with hiding $2 billion from tax officials in offshore accounts, perhaps the largest tax evasion scheme in history. When asked about the tax matter at a New York Times online deal book conference in mid-November, Smith referred to it as a mistake, saying, "A big part of life is that you make mistakes. You have to in some way clarify them, clear them up, and get beyond them." In late November, Smith's co-founder and close friend Brian Seth told Forbes he was leaving Vista Equity, ending the partnership the two men formed in 2000. Number 7. Eek Batista lost the majority of his wealth. In 2012, Batista was worth an estimated $30 billion, making him the 7th richest man in the world. But when Batista's oil company failed to meet demands and Brazil's economy slid into a decline, the billionaire filed for bankruptcy in 2013. After authorities began investigating why Brazil's top companies had declined so quickly, they charged Batista with money laundering and corruption in January 2017. In July 2018, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison for bribing former Rio de Janeiro Governor Sergio Cabral. Number 6. Leon Black's personal financial ties to Jeffrey. In October 2020, a New York Times report revealed that Black, the billionaire founder of private equity and investing firm Apollo Management, paid disgraced financier Jeffrey about $50 million for personal financial advice between 2012 and 2017. The time period is notable. It means Black engaged in Jeffrey's services long after he was convicted in 2008 of an underage intimacy charge in Florida, and a plea deal worked out between him and U.S. attorneys that enabled Jeff to serve what many believe was a light prison sentence in a county jail. Black quickly expressed regret for his association with Jeffrey since his 2019 arrest, said that Jeffrey never did business with Apollo, and claimed he was unaware of Jeff's alleged intimacy ring of underage girls. Jeff then passed by taking his own life in Manhattan jail in August 2019 while awaiting trial. Number 5. Jacqueline Mars struck another vehicle, taking a life. Jacqueline Mars, the heiress to the Mars candy fortune and company co-founder, was involved in a 2013 car accident that took the life of a woman and an unborn child. The Washington Post reported that, according to authorities, Mars had told a witness at the scene of the accident that she had fallen asleep while driving. Victims in the accident were identified as 86-year-old grandmother named Irene, who was sitting in the backseat, and the unborn child of Ashley Acker Baxley, the driver of the Chrysler minivan struck by Mars's Porsche SUV. 5 other passengers were later treated at the hospital. At the time, Mars was the second richest woman in the US with a net worth of $20.5 billion. Her net worth currently sits at $30.2 billion. She pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor reckless driving charge, resulting in a 6-month suspension of her driver's license and paid a $2,500 fine. The Acker family said that they never wished for Mars to spend time behind bars for the accident. "We have only forgiveness in our hearts for her," Sharon Acker, Ashley's mother, said in a court statement. "My husband and I would like to say thank you to Mrs. Mars for her kindness thus far and hope in time that she will too find peace." Number 4. Luckin Coffee's fabricated revenues. With the goal of growing bigger than Starbucks in China, Luckin Coffee listed its shares on the Nasdaq in May 2019 and proceeded to wow investors with its growing revenues. The Chinese coffee chain attempted to grab market share by offering discounts such as buy one get two free deals. Shares soared, and in early March, Luckin Coffee CEO Jenny was briefly a billionaire alongside Luckin's founder and chairman Charles Liu. In April, the company announced an internal probe found that Luckin's chief operating officer, Jean Liu, along with several subordinates, had faked $310 million in transactions. By the end of April, Luckin chairman Liu was $1 billion poorer. As the stock fell further, his net worth dropped to a current estimated $800 million. On December 16, 2020, Luckin Coffee agreed to pay $180 million to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission as a result of its investigation into the fabricated revenues. The company did not admit or deny the allegations made by the SCE, and no individuals were charged in the matter. Number 3. Elizabeth Holmes fell from grace after it emerged that her medical startup wasn't everything it claimed to be. Elizabeth Holmes was once lauded as a star on the rise in Silicon Valley. Her blood testing startup, Theranos, gained attention in the early 2000s as an exciting investment opportunity promising to revolutionize the way patients are tested and treated for various diseases and illnesses. By the end of 2004, the company had raised roughly $6 million from private investors, some of whom had personal connections to Holmes. By 2015, she topped Forbes' list of America's self-made women with a net worth of $4.5 billion. However, after concerns about the validity of Theranos technology was raised to the FDA, things began to turn sour for the rising company. By November 2015, Theranos had lost its 2 major partnerships with Safeway and Walgreens. In 2016, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services concluded Theranos testing might pose a safety risk to patients. After multiple lawsuits, layoffs, and a federal allegation that Holmes had conducted massive fraud, Theranos closed its doors in September 2018, narrowly avoiding bankruptcy. Holmes and her partner Sonny Baldwin were charged with a wire fraud of the Department of Justice, and the trial was set to begin in August 2020. They have both since pleaded not guilty, and on Forbes' list, Holmes' personal net mouth is at $0. Number 2, President Trump's tax bombshell. The New York Times achieved in September 2020 what was starting to seem impossible. They got hold of Donald Trump's tax returns, and what they found was rough. Most outrageous perhaps was the revelation that in 2016 and 2017, the billionaire paid just $750 in federal taxes. And for almost 2 decades before that, Trump paid nothing in federal taxes due to massive loans racked up by his businesses. At the time, the Trump Organization claimed most of the Times facts were inaccurate, and that Trump had paid millions in personal taxes to the federal government. But I think we all know that's not true. Now coming in at number 1, Markus Baron, Wirecard and the missing $2 billion. The CEO of German payments firm Wirecard was a billionaire in 2019, but not on March 18th when Forbes finalized the 2020 list of the world's billionaires. In June 2019, news broke that Wirecard could not account for $2 billion of funds. Markus soon resigned as CEO as the accounting scandal struck a blow to the company's stock. Then just a bit later in June the same year, he was arrested and charged with allegedly inflating Wirecard's sales and balance sheet with fake transactions to improve its profile with investors. He denies any wrongdoing and was being held in a prison while Munich prosecutors completed their investigation. The company eventually admitted that the missing $2 billion was likely money that it never had. Wirecard shares took a beating, falling nearly 90% the week after the funds were reported missing. The 7% stake in Wirecard, had he held on to it, would have been worth just $4 million as of late December 2020. Number 10, Russell Brand. Russell Brand is an English comedian and actor known for his flamboyant style and manner. Brand has received 3 British comedy awards: Best Newcomer, Best Live Stand-Up, and the award for Outstanding Contribution to Comedy. After beginning his career as a comedian and later becoming an MTV presenter in the UK, in 2004 Brand gained a role as the host of Big Brother's Big Mouth, a Big Brother spin-off. But back in 2014, Brand triggered an immense national controversy after explicitly bashing the Queen and the royal family in his book Revolution. In the book, Brand highlighted, in England we have the Queen for F's sake. We have to call her things like Your Majesty, like she's all majestic. She's just a person. Also adding, Your Highness, what the F is that? What? She's high up, above us, at the top of a class pyramid on a shelf of money with her own face on it. Number 9, Danny Boyle. Danny Boyle is an English director and producer. He's known for his work on films including Shallow Grave, Trainspotting and its sequel T2 Trainspotting, The Beach, 28 Days Later, Sunshine, Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours, Steve Jobs, and Yesterday. But while speaking with The Guardian back in 2013, the director highlighted how he believed that the monarchy should be abolished, and how if the British public still wished for a royal family, then the only fair way to go about that should be through a public election. Boyle stated, I think the pressure on them is utterly impossible, as recent events show. It's a ludicrous spotlight they're under. You can still have a royal family if you like, but actually have an elected head of state. Number 8, Colin Firth. Colin Firth is an English actor. He was identified in the mid-1980s with the Brit pack of rising young British actors, undertaking a challenging series of roles, including leading roles in A Month in the Country, Tumbledown, and Valmont. His portrayal of Mr. Darcy in the 1995 television adaptation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice led to widespread attention. However, despite having done an outstanding job portraying Queen Elizabeth II's father in The King's Speech, the actor has previously spoken up about his doubts with the nature of the royal family. During a CNN interview, Firth highlighted how, despite their good morals, he just couldn't agree with the totalitarian way in which the royals came into power. The actor stated, I really like voting, it's one of my favorite things, before later adding how unelected bodies were a problem for him. Number 7, Johnny Marr. Johnny Marr is an English musician, songwriter, and singer. He first achieved fame as a guitarist and co-songwriter of The Smiths, who were active from 1982 to 1987. He has since performed with numerous other bands and embarked on a solo career. Born in Manchester to Irish parents, Marr formed his first band at the age of 13. The Smiths attained commercial success and were critically acclaimed with Marr's jangle pop guitar style becoming distinctive of the band's sound, but separated in 1987 due to personal differences. Since then, Marr has been a member of The Pretenders, Electronic, Modest Mouse, and The Cribs, and has become a prolific session musician, working with names such as Pet Shop Boys, Talking Heads, Brian Ferry, and Hans Zimmer. However, in a 2011 interview with NME magazine, Marr said he has a few problems with the monarchy, from serious to less serious. One thing about the Queen that bugs Marr, her resting bleach face. Why does she have to deal with her subjects with such a dour face? Surely her life can't be that hard, he said. When asked if he'd accept an honor or title from Her Majesty, such as a knighthood or being named a member of the Order of the British Empire, Marr replied, F no. Number 6, Honor Blackman. Honor Blackman was an English actress known for the role in The Avengers, Goldfinger, Shaleko, and Jason and the Argonauts. She's also known for a role as Laura West in the ITV sitcom The Upper Hand. In 2014, she was offered the chance to become a CBE, Commander of the British Empire, but she turned down the honor. They rang you beforehand and asked if you'd like to accept, and I think they were quite shocked when I declined, she said. but since I'm a Republican, I thought it would be somewhat hypocritical to pop up to the palace. Number 5. Noel Gallagher. Noel Gallagher is an English singer, songwriter, and musician. He was a chief songwriter, lead guitarist, and co-lead vocalist of the rock band Oasis until their split in 2009. After leaving Oasis, he formed Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, and he is one of the most successful songwriters in British music history. As a writer of 8 UK #1 singles, and co-writer of a further #1, and the sole or primary writer of 10 UK #1 studio albums, he is widely considered one of the most influential songwriters in the history of British rock music, cited by numerous major subsequent artists as an influence. In a comedic article posted by the Rolling Stone detailing the extensive list of things that Gallagher has been mad at, there's a quote of him outlining his violent wishes for the royal family. The singer stated, quote, "I wouldn't wish the royal family dead, just seriously maimed. I'd take a couple legs off." Number 4. Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn is a British politician who served as a leader of the opposition and leader of the Labour Party from 2015 to 2020. On the political left of the Labour Party, Corbyn describes himself as a socialist. He's been a member of Parliament for Islington North since 1983. Corbyn sits in the House of Commons as an independent, having had the whip removed in October 2020. But he was overwhelmed by the media in 2015 after he refused to sing God Save the Queen during a Battle of Britain memorial event. And in 2017, an old interview was unearthed in which he called for the royal family to be dissolved. I think it's time that we just move on and said, when the Queen completes her reign, wouldn't that be an appropriate time to call it a day and have an elected head of state, he told GMTV. Number 3. Eddie Izzard. Edwards is an English stand-up comedian, actor, and activist. Her comedic style takes the form of what appears to the audience as rambling, whimsical monologues in self-referential pantomime. She starred in the 2007 television series The Richest, and has appeared in numerous films including Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, Shadow of the Vampire, The Cat's Meow, and Valkyrie. But back in 2014, she spoke up about her disagreement on hereditary privilege to The Independent as she made her claims against the royal family. Quote, "I am not into monarchy. Hereditary privilege is crazy to me. We should widen the gene pool and elect a head of state for 5 years." Number 2. Stacey Solomon. Stacey is an English singer and television personality. She finished in 3rd place on the 6th series of The X Factor in 2009, and won the 10th series of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here in 2010. Her debut single, a cover of Driving Home for Christmas, was released in 2011, followed by her debut studio album, Shy, in 2015. In 2016, Solomon presented I'm a Celebrity Extra Camp and began appearing as a panelist on the ITV talk show Loose Women. But Stacey made headlines after footage of her criticizing the royal family resurfaced just in time for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. The 2018 clip showed Solomon on the British daytime show Loose Women expressing her confusion as to why so many people obsess over the royal family when in reality they are just exactly the same as any other person. Solomon stated, quote, "I don't get why we're so obsessed with these humans that are exactly the same. It could be us four sitting there, I just don't get it." She later added, "I would work hard if the country paid me to have like 12 houses and work really hard." Now coming in at number 1, Daniel Radcliffe. Daniel Radcliffe is an English actor. He rose to fame at age 12 when he began portraying Harry Potter in the film series of the same name, and has held other various film and theater roles. Over his career, Radcliffe has received various awards and nominations. Radcliffe made his acting debut at age 10 in the BBC One television film, David Copperfield, followed by his feature film debut in The Tailor of Panama. Over the next decade, he played the role of Harry Potter in 7 sequels, ending with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 in 2011. During this period, he became one of the world's highest paid actors and gained worldwide fame, popularity, and critical acclaim. However, at a 2017 interview with Daily Beast, he stated that his patriotism has nothing to do with the royals. Radcliffe stated, quote, "I am not a royalist, not at all. I'm definitely a Republican in the British sense of the word. I just don't see a use of the monarchy, though I'm a fierce patriot. I'm proud of being English, but I think the monarchy symbolizes a lot of what's wrong with the country." Starting off this countdown at number 10, Northern Bank robbery. On Sunday, December 19th, 2004, 2 groups of armed men stormed into the homes of 2 different employees of the Northern Bank. Both of the employees, Chris Ward and Kevin McMullen, were taken from their homes to the bank. Their families were held hostage, and the robbers told Ward and McMullen to continue work as usual throughout the next day. The robbers kept in contact with the 2 via mobile phones, and had the 2 steal $35.7 million after the bank had closed. They also forced Ward to transport $1.4 million to them at a bus stop during work hours. No one was ever charged with the crime itself, although 2 people convicted of laundering some of the stolen money were jailed. Ward, the innocent employee thus in the middle of the whole thing, seemed to get the worst of it. He was put on trial on suspicion of being in on the job, and it took 4 years to clear his name entirely. Number 9, Dresden Green Vault heist. Located inside the Dresden Castle in Dresden, Germany, the Green Vault Museum holds the largest treasure collections in Europe and items that date back to the 16th century. In the early hours of Monday morning on November 25, 2019, thieves set a fire at an electrical distribution point nearby, cutting the museum's power and turning the area dark. Immediately, thieves smashed through a small corner window near the museum's historic jewelry collection, 10 rooms with about 3,000 items of jewelry and other recognized masterpieces. Wearing headlamps, they smashed glass and stole priceless jewels. It's not, however, entirely clear how much those are worth. Initial reports said $1.2 billion, while later reports say the item's value had fallen short of that billion-dollar figure. The thieves were in and out very fast, as police were called to the museum not long after the initial break-in. They fled the scene in an Audi A6 sedan, then lit it on fire in an underground parking lot, presumably jumping to another getaway vehicle. Number 8. The Dunbar Armed Robbery. Alan Pace masterminded the heist while he was working for Dunbar as a safety inspector. During his time, he plotted out the facility's layouts, its cameras, and its guards. No one suspected him. He was a fun-loving guy on the surface. Pace had recruited 5 childhood friends to perform the heist. He plotted out exactly where and when he needed to step in the hallways to avoid the cameras in order to get to the vault. They had the codes and knew where to go, so they expertly waited and maneuvered around the building until they happened upon a camera they couldn't avoid. So they went and tied up the security guards. And they took the VCR tapes too. When it was all done, the crew loaded up a U-Haul with $18.9 million without firing a single shot. They would have gotten away with it, however, but 2 years later, one of the robbers gave a real estate broker a stack of marked bills, and that broker went to the police. Hill then cracked and named names. Only about $5 million of the stolen money, however, was ever recovered. Number 7. Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum theft. For over 20 years, the Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum heist has fascinated and frustrated the FBI and the art world. In the early hours of March 18, 1990, 2 men disguised as police officers approached the Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, Massachusetts. The museum guards on duty that night were 2 young men. One of them, Rick Abbott, broke protocol and let the fake cops in through the employee entrance, believing that there had been a disturbance of some kind. While the thieves surveyed the grounds, they asked the guards who let them in if anyone else was in the museum. Abbott called his fellow guard Randy Hestan down. The thieves, who had not said they were thieves yet, then told Abbott to come from behind the desk to prove his identity because they might have a warrant for his arrest. It's worth noting that the museum, despite holding countless treasures of art, only had one single panic button, and it was at that desk. The thieves handcuffed Abbott, and when Hestan arrived, handcuffed him as well. Then the thieves announced they were there to rob the museum, and so they did. In 81 minutes, the 2 thieves stole 13 works of art. Then the thieves simply disappeared into the night, and none of the pieces have ever been found. Number 6. London Brinks Mat Gold Robbery. 6 thieves in balaclavas broke into the Brinks Mat warehouse at London's Heathrow Airport in 1983 and tied up the security guards. One of them, Anthony Black, worked with the robbers. Their goal was to steal $4 million from the vault. Instead, the thieves found around 7,000 gold bars. Within 2 hours, the job turned into the biggest gold heist in British history. The men slipped away in a van, buckling under the weight of $37 million in gold, diamonds, and cash, wishing the security guards a Merry Christmas as they drove off. The group had to melt down the pure ingots and mix the gold with copper and brass so the purity didn't create suspicion. It didn't take long for police to find Black and follow the gang's money trail. Not all the robbers were convicted, however, and most of the gold is still missing. Also, fun fact, one of the thieves reportedly named his 2 Rottweiler dogs Brinks and Matt. Halfway at number 5, the Seymour train robbery. The Renault gang was a group of outlaws that operated in the Midwestern United States for just 4 years, from 1865 to 1868. Prior to October 6, 1866, any train robbery that had occurred was when the train was stationary, like robbing a building. The Renault gang changed all that. John Renault, Sim Renault, and Frank Sparks boarded an Ohio and Mississippi railway train at night. At that time, valuables were locked in an iron safe and watched by a railroad company employee, who was there to move the contents of each safe between various stations. 3 masked men burst into the rail car demanding the safe keys. The employee tried to say he only had a key to the smaller safe, which held considerably less cash and valuables. One of the robbers ripped the key from him and opened it. Inside, they found $18,000 in cash, some jewelry, and several small packages. The bigger safe couldn't be opened on the train, as the key would have to be opened by an Adams Express agent. But the big iron safe was on wheels, so the group shoved the box out of the moving train. Then they pulled the bell cord to signal an emergency stop. As the train slowed down, they jumped out and into the darkness. The big safe weighed far too heavy for the Renault gang to run away with it, however, and especially because the law would be coming. So they left the safe, and it's $38,000 behind. The Renault gang continued to terrorize various areas around India and Missouri, and 4 more trains before 3 of the men were caught attempting to rob a 5th train. After they were taken prisoner, a mob hanged them by a tree. Another 3 Renault gang members were then caught soon thereafter, and were similarly hanged from the same tree. The site is known as Hangman Crossing, Indiana. Number 4, the Knightsbridge security deposit robbery. Valerio Vissier, who was already wanted for more than 50 armed robberies in Italy, almost committed the perfect crime in London in 1987. He and an assistant walked into a bank and asked to rent rent a safe deposit box. When the men were shown to the vault, they pulled out guns and overpowered the bank manager and guards. After putting a closed sign on the bank door, they let in some friends, broke into as many of the safe deposit boxes as possible, and made off with millions in cash and valuables. Valerio fled to South America, but was eventually arrested when he returned to England to ship his Ferrari to his new home. Number 3, the United California Bank Heist. In 1972, Emil Decino, a professional criminal from Ohio, assembled a gang of 6 robbers and flew them to California. They rented a townhouse and planned a heist on a bank where they had mistakenly heard President Richard Nixon kept a multi-million-dollar slush fund. The crew used dynamite to make their way into the vault, stole $30 million worth of cash and valuables, and fled after scrubbing down the townhouse. The cops eventually identified the robbers through a generous tip they'd given a taxi driver, and through fingerprints found on the inside of the townhome's dishwasher. Number 2, the Hatton Garden job. It might not be one of the biggest heists in history, but it's certainly one of the greatest. The Hatton Garden robbers weren't your ordinary criminals either. Half of them were senior citizens, looking for one last score before cashing into the big casino in the sky. They had multiple names. The Guardian called them Diamond Weezers, while the French press dubbed them the Grandad's Gang. The thieves used an elevator shaft to reach the basement, where they forced open shutter doors and used a heavy-duty drill to get into the vault, which was 6.5 feet of reinforced concrete. Prior to the robbery, the gang's alarm expert tampered with the security system, using a 2G mobile phone jammer to block the alarm signal. Once inside, they tore open about 70 deposit boxes. Initially, it was believed that $279.9 million was stolen, but that number has since dropped to $19 million. The heist was carried out by 6 elderly ringleaders, ranging from the late 50s to the late 70s. Another 4 people were also convicted in connection with the crime. Now coming in at number 1, the Central Bank of Iraq robbery. This robbery in Baghdad became one of the largest bank heists in history. The mastermind was none other than Iraq director Saddam Hussein. One day before the Iraq War began in 2003, he sent 3 large trucks to the central bank. He also sent his son with a handwritten note asking to withdraw nearly $1 billion to keep it from enemy hands. The money was loaded into vans and driven away. Most of the cash was recovered in the ensuing raids, but it doesn't end here. American soldiers also made off with hundreds of thousands of dollars for themselves and their families. 35 service members were then later caught.
This list made me rethink my financial situation because today we're counting down the top 10 poorest royal families. Welcome back to The Rich Life. I'm your host Cash Mooney. Before we dive in, as always, make sure to show us some love by subscribing and hitting that bell icon with full force. I'm going to first state that our comparison here is the royal family of Saudi Arabia, who had an estimated net worth of $1.4 trillion. Number 10 on this list is Queen Margaret II. She's the Queen of Denmark as well as supreme authority of the Church of Denmark. Born on the 16th of April in 1940, she has a net worth of $40 million according to sources online, which lands her on this list. If she's considered poor, I'm fairly concerned for my future, but in comparison to other royals, she isn't exactly most paid royal, and earns a lot of her income through grants from her citizens. She's still an active queen and still actively gets more rich, so maybe next year she'll get off this list. Atumfo Ose Tutu II is the king of his kingdom and comes in at number 2 with a staggering $10 million to his name. He has developed this income through literal gold mines within his country, along with his company that provides mining equipment to multiple major mining companies in Ghana. Unfortunately, he's on this list, but he has found major success in his company and for his country, so numbers don't do justice to his story. He's helped build a better economy for Ghana with the use of his mining company, as Ghana has a large amount of gold. Fun fact, he worked in Toronto, Canada at an insurance company for 4 years. He returned to Ghana in 1989 where he started his company and soon became king. Now this next royal family on the list is difficult. Number 9, the House of Orange Nassau. This is the Dutch royal family, and while their history is of the richest royalties, they are very secretive on their wealth. Unreliable sources have said that the Prince of the House of Orange has a net worth of 1.5 million, but the Dutch royals hide their wealth, and anyone who knows about their incomes stays silent on the subject. Which to me means either they got a ton of money and would prefer not to lose it in taxes, or they got none and they don't want to be considered poor. Either or, their silence has landed them on this list. I guess we'll never really know, but let me know what you think in the comments. Adding to number 9 is number 8, King William Alexander, who is the king of the House of Orange. He earns about $1.1 million as the king of Holland. The reason he's on this list is because, again, their income may be low compared to other royals and they might be hiding it. It is believed that they could have a secret fortune of $4.1 billion. They're very secretive royals, and it makes you wonder if the poorest royals are a front for the money that they rest upon. Makes me curious. I wish I had hidden away millions, but King William is said to earn roughly $1.1 million, so hidden money or not, it did land him a spot in this list. This may be the most modest royal family in the world. Number 7, House of Oldenburg, Norway. This Norwegian family is still rich, don't get me wrong, but they are so humble about their fortune. Often they're seen riding public transit and dressing very casual for events and gatherings. They even bring their kids to public school over being homeschooled. They may be royal, but they act like everyone else, and I love to see it. You can tell they have strong values, all whilst the king withholds a net worth of $30 million alongside Olympic trophies. What a true king at that. I put them at number 7 due to the fact that they may have the money to outspend the royalty above them, but they're humble and live an honest life. They don't flaunt their fortune, which is a very good quality to have. Number 6, King Philip. The King of Spain has recently released his net worth as the government pushed to start being more transparent with their residents. He's announced that his net worth is a shocking $2.1 million. I say that as if I have more, that to which I can assure you I don't, but it is significantly lower than the royalty listed above. I will note that most of these royal families possess significant inheritance along with assets and allowances. So he is still rich, he's just most likely releasing liquid income and not including assets and inheritance. But we'll never really know how much money he has. King Philip, if you do have some extra cash that you're hiding, I promise no one will look in my bank account if you just want to keep it there. Number 5, King Tupa of Tonga. Tonga is a Polynesian kingdom with more than 170 islands in the South Pacific. Of the 170 islands, there are 45 that are inhabited. With a very small population of 108,000 people, Tonga is not large, therefore their royalty must not have a lot of money. Wrong! The Tonga king has an estimated $5 million net worth, which per capita is actually a large amount. Tonga also has a large poverty rate, which is due to the 24% of their land allowing them to grow crops. Maybe the king should spread some love and boost their economy. But I mean, what do I know? I'm nowhere near having 5 mil. Unfortunately, because of Tonga's location, their economy struggles to thrive, and they make the majority of their income through tropical fruits and tourism, which seems to go right to their king. The number 4 spot goes to Luis Alfonso de Bourbon. The rich inheritance ruling over multiple European countries has come to an end with a small living bloodline and a new government form taking over. The head of the house has a net worth of $1.5 million, which is earth-shattering compared to the riches the family possessed before. I'm sure he and his family are still doing alright though. I mean, at the end of the day, how many people can say they're royalty? Located in France, the monarchy has been overthrown and restored many times throughout history, so I can see where their money has gone. Luis is the head of the French portion of the House of Bourbon, but times are difficult for the monarch and it seems that they don't get the same respect other royalties do. Number 9, Tuatea Paki. He is the current king of Maori in New Zealand and has been since 2006. Finding information on his income and earnings is difficult, but after some digging it is stated he has a net worth of between $800K and $1 million. I mean, no complaints there as long as that money's still kicking around. At 67 years old, he had success within the throne, and I'm sure will keep his duties as long as possible. He recently denied a meeting between him and England's royals. That was nothing to do with the video, but it's a cool fact I learned while making the video, so I thought I'd share. Okay, number 10 is not royalty, I'll be transparent, but he's a great guy, so hear me out. The president of Uruguay. This president has the heart of a lion. He donates about 90% of his monthly salary, equivalent to $12,000 to charity. He explained in an interview that he lived a humble life up until being elected president and at his age finds no reason to change that. He said he's happy sitting on his farm with his dog and doesn't want anything to change. After donating his salary, he's left with roughly $775 a month. He donates to entrepreneurs and less fortunate of his country. He's quoted saying, "Poor's a mindset. I don't feel poor, but instead I have freedom." I think he's a major indicator that there are amazing people out there, like everyone who is subscribed to the rich life.
10 things King Charles inherited from the Queen. And make sure to subscribe because it really helps us out, but now let's get started. Starting off this countdown at number 10, problems. The ascension of King Charles III to the throne has reignited a debate over whether the royal family deserves a global role in the 21st century, no more so than in the 14th Commonwealth realms, where the British monarch remains the head of state. Hard questions about the place of a foreign king have been raised by the legacy of empire and slavery that have been intertwined with British royalty for centuries. And Republican movements from the Pacific to North America to the Caribbean will be deciding whether they should take advantage of the opportunity. Recent events including Barbados' conversion to a republic in 2021 and the removal of Queen Elizabeth as its head of state have
also contributed to a buildup that may now reach a peak, according to The Guardian. Although there are vocal Republicans in Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, it seems like Jamaica will have to deal with the problem first, not least because installing King Charles III could necessitate a constitutional referendum. Number 9. Duchy of Cornwall. Long before he inherited his mother's empire, King Charles III created his own. Charles spent 50 years building his royal estate into a billion-dollar portfolio. He's one of the most successful moneymakers in the royal family industry, while his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, primarily entrusted responsibility for her portfolio to Charles. The development of the Duchy of Cornwall, a private estate, involved Charles in a far deeper way. King Charles III has built up a sizable group of experienced managers over the last 10 years who've almost doubled the value of profits in his portfolio. The iconic cricket stadium, the Oval, the luxuriant countryside in the south of England, coastal vacation rentals, office space in London, and a suburban grocery depot are all currently owned by the Duchy of Cornwall. The 130,000-acre real estate portfolio, which is almost the size of Chicago and brings in millions of dollars annually in rental income, is customarily controlled by a duke or duchess, according to the New York Times. However, King Charles III will forfeit the Duchy of Cornwall. Prince William, the eldest son of Charles and the current successor to the throne, will get the duchy, which was established in 1337 by Edward III for his son and heir Prince Edward. Number 8. Wimbledon's Royal Box. As the name suggests, the Royal Box on the center court at Wimbledon's is the best place to enjoy a game of tennis. The 74-seater box, which was built in 1992 and owned by Queen Elizabeth II, has been an entertainment spot for friends and guests, including the members of the royal family, political figures, and commercial partners who are allowed to sit on an invitation-only basis. The price of the tickets is not stated because, as I mentioned, it is invite-only, but it's estimated that they could probably cost around $700 per ticket, and King Charles can invite whoever he wants. Number 7. The Sovereign Grant. The British royal family is traditionally supported by taxpayers' funds, following an agreement made by King George III in the late 18th century. The Sovereign Wealth Grant is a fixed annual payment that is paid to the royal family from public funds. In 2021 and 2022, the value of the Sovereign Grant has been set at just over $100 million. These funds are used to cover a variety of the expenses of King Charles III and the rest of the royal family, including travel costs, security, and official engagements. The grant also helps fund the upkeep of royal residences such as Buckingham Palace. The Sovereign Grant is used to support the Queen and her family, as well as to pay the costs associated with the succession to the throne. Number 6. No taxes. And now, King Charles III will inherit the majority of the late sovereign's personal assets in its entirety, without the British government receiving any compensation, according to the provisions signed into law by the then Prime Minister John Major in 1993. Inheritances handed from, quote, a sovereign to a sovereign are exempt from the 40% tax imposed on assets worth more than $380. However, there is much more at stake than $500 million inherited by King Charles III. Number 5. Swan population. Queen Elizabeth enjoyed all manner of historic perks thanks to her then position as monarch, but one of the most unusual is that she had the right to own any swan swimming in open waters throughout the United Kingdom. I could go to Wales or any part of England or Scotland and say, that swan belongs to Her Majesty, and just take it. That would be it, says David Barber, who holds the ancient title of Royal Swan Marker. So it's likely now that King Charles would inherit the swans as well. Number 4. The future. King Charles III is the oldest heir to the British throne, and some experts believe that the responsibilities and challenges of being head of state should prompt him to abdicate in favor of his son so that he can retire with honor, taking over the overwhelming inheritance left by his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. He has a window of time in which to rule the country, and now everyone is waiting to see what kind of sovereign he will be. According to some experts, one of the reasons for King Charles III to abdicate would be that he is not comfortable with the constraints of his role as monarch, particularly in expressing his personal views. The king is used to speaking his mind. The new monarch of the United Kingdom, a more polarizing figure than his mother, is expected to rekindle debate over the usefulness of the royal family in light of the current state of the nation. At the same time, King Charles III is expected to fill the void created by the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, an iconic figure across the globe known for her sense of duty and devotion to service. Number 3. Car collection. The Queen made her presence known even by the vehicle she drove to reach various events and appointments. It started in 1944, when she joined the war effort as an 18-year-old princess. The Queen's state fleet, comprising 3 Rolls-Royces, 3 Daimlers, and 2 Bentleys, is kept at Buck House, alongside a few Volkswagen support cars, so there's a high chance that Charles will take ownership of these cars and drive them without a license, of course. Number 2. The true royal riches. The monarch as an institution is in possession of royal riches that are worth an estimated value of $38 billion. All these will be given to King Charles III in trust, Trust. The assets include properties such as the Crown Estate, Buckingham Palace, the Duchy of Lancaster, the Duchy of Cornwall, Kensington Palace, and the Crown Estate, Scotland. Also the Royal Collection of Art and Jewellery, as well as official residences and the Royal Archives. That makes it one of Europe's most prominent property empires, with a huge commercial interest in areas such as developing offshore wind power generation. King Charles III, who once married to the late Princess Diana, is not allowed to sell any of these assets, however. But the royal family receives 25% of profits from the Crown Estate. Charles's personal wealth, which according to Celebrity Net Worth is estimated to be worth $100 million, will be augmented by the riches of the late Queen Elizabeth. Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth's late husband, left a more modest legacy worth approximately $11 million, which included a collection of about 3,000 works of art, most of which were given to relatives and friends, according to the Sunday Times. The Duchy of Lancaster is a private estate with business, agricultural, and residential properties owned by monarchs since the Middle Ages, in which Charles inherits as king. Number 1. Wood Farm. One of the lesser-known homes that Charles has acquired from the Queen is Wood Farm, which is located on the beautiful Sandringham estate, but is separate from the main house. The late Prince Philip was very fond of the humble property, and is reportedly where he spent most of his time after retiring from public duties in August 2017, resigning separately from Her Majesty. The 5-bedroom farmhouse is set within a picturesque corner of the stunning 600-acre estate, but it is rather low-key inside, far from the gilded grandeur of royal residences such as Buckingham Palace. The impressive estate is also home to Armoured Hall, which is the country home for the Prince and Princess of Wales and their 3 children. But that is all. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.